What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Show, where I, Graham G.S. Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network and on Peacock. And today we're talking the November 1st, 2021 edition of Raw Talk. Honestly, following a pretty good edition of Raw, at least by recent Raw standards. Don't want to sit here and say it was the greatest Raw I've ever seen, but by recent Raw standards, at least in the last couple of months, weeks or so, it was a pretty good show. I enjoyed it. It kicked off with a great women's championship match. Pretty decent main event between Becky and Kevin Owens. I enjoyed the show overall, more of an emphasis on the in-ring action and stuff like that. No, literally zero build for Survivor Series, but I guess we're not even acknowledging that's a pay-per-view, and that's coming up in less than 3 weeks, so I don't know what's going on there. But nonetheless, this was the November 1st, 2021 edition of Raw Talk. To kick off the show, Jackie Redmond and Matt Camp recap the ending to the show that saw Big E beat Kevin Owens, despite Rollins attempting to interfere and Owens seemingly capitalizing on said distraction from Rollins, and Big E wasn't happy with Owens about that, laying him out with the big ending anyway, despite Owens saying, "Hey, I had nothing to do with that, and I really didn't even see Owens attack you, so I don't know what you're talking about." And Matt Camp brings up that Big E has history with Kevin Owens. I'm surprised, unless I just missed it. Big E didn't bring this up during their promo earlier in the evening, but Matt Camp is, a fan like the rest of us, and he's a great historian as well. I like he really brings this great perspective here to the show, because he brings up how it was, 2 years ago now? 2.5 years ago, that Owens, despite being a babyface at the time, when he was trying to get along with the New Day and befriend himself and kind of go buddy-buddy with the New Day guys, Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods, he turned on Kofi, he turned on Woods. And Big E was out at that point, so that's when he was trying to fill in and go after Kofi, and he challenged him for his WWE Championship. Big E came back after the Owens feud was over, so they actually never had a match, which was surprising. They never had a feud. Owens had already moved on. Kofi had already moved on. And I guess the match they had on Monday's Raw this week was the first ever one-on-one match between the two. So I like the fact that Matt Camp brought up Big E's history with Owens, and hopefully he mentions that next week. Does Big E on the show? Because if he doesn't, he looks like an asshole for just attacking Owens for no reason. He has, obviously now he has reason. When they point that out, he has reason for wanting to go after or not trusting Kevin Owens, given Owens' past actions and, attacking New Day and people like that. He has history with Owens. But they didn't bring that up on the show. It just kind of looked like Owens was defending himself, and then Big E, because he didn't trust him. But why doesn't he trust him? Because Owens has been a babyface for a few years now. So they didn't really make that clear, but I'm glad Matt Camp brought that up here. I thought that was cool. They also recap Finn Balor versus Chad Gable, a great match in the time given on Monday's Raw, with Balor winning. And they also teased the possibility of Finn Balor facing Otis one-on-one, because Balor beat Gable, and Otis went after Balor afterwards. So I'm sure that match is coming, probably next week. Balor's not really doing much of anything right now. He really hasn't been doing much of anything since Extreme Rules, kind of bouncing around from one thing to another. But hey, more Balor matches against Alpha Academy. You won't get many complaints out of me about that. We hear from Balor backstage at Raw with Kevin Patrick, wearing a bucket hat of all things. He looked very nice. Finn Balor congratulated Gable on getting his Masters from Full Sail, which Gable mentioned in, I think, a promo last night on Raw. Got his Masters in, I think, digital media, or digital media design or something like that. It was media design or whatever. But he said, listen, Gable's great, but he got unlucky because he was in the ring with someone who is at the top of their game right now, that being Finn Balor, and he got beat. So then he just kind of talks about how he's ready to tour the UK. He's ready for the UK tour coming up in a couple days or next week or something. And also talks about his Halloween costume with his wife, because Kevin Patrick asked about that. And he dressed up as Shawn Michaels, and his wife went as Triple H. So they went as DX for Halloween in different incarnations of their career. It looked like the wife was Triple H circa like the early 2000s or something, and Shawn Michaels, or Balor as Shawn Michaels, was the Shawn Michaels from the mid-90s. But it was a great couple costume nonetheless, so I thought it was well done. Back in the studio, Jackie Redmond and Matt Camp recap the Zelina Vega and Carmella win over the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions Rhea Ripley and Nikki Ash. The match was fine. You had to know the heels were winning because they have no other women's tag team, so who else are they going to have Rhea and Nikki defend against? So it was pretty obvious that Vega and Carmella would win. Whatever. Matt Camp lost a little credibility with me when he said, Vega's accent is great, and I'm thinking, no. I know, she's a heel, he's trying to play along, but the accent is fucking terrible. Like, if this guy wants to call it down the middle, he would just say, why is she using that accent? It's not good, it's not believable. especially since she's a heel, you don't have to praise her for having this great accent. The accent is awful. It just makes it worse. So he lost a little credibility with me when he said the accent was great. They also recapped the Dirty Dogs beating the Street Profits with the help of Omos on Raw, and Omos can't be put down, they said, right now, as far as like he's dominant and he's going after everyone. I read this morning AJ Styles is apparently not on Raw right now due to a non-injury medical issue. So maybe he's sick, maybe he has another issue going on, who knows. Hopefully he's back soon, but that would explain why AJ has not been on Raw the last couple of weeks and why Omos has had to go solo. Again, that's probably why we didn't get that Raw Tag Team title match last week, thank God. I really have zero desire to see yet another match between RK Bro, AJ Styles, and Omos. It's time to move on. We hear from the Dirty Dogs, Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode backstage at Raw. They say they didn't need Omos' help to beat the Street Profits, but they'll accept it anyway because they won the match, but they would have done that regardless of whether he came out or not, he said. Ziggler said they delivered, they went out there, they did exactly what they said they were going to do, beat the Street Profits. They won their Raw Tag Team title shot last night, and Roode does say the Tag Team titles are in their future, and they're the team to beat. They did get beat last week, he says. He acknowledges that. I'm glad they didn't forget about that because it was literally a week ago. They got the Tag Team title shot and they lost. But Roode says, listen, it's because we wrestled 2 matches in one night, and they definitely cheated, and they did something to get us off of our game. But otherwise, we are the team to beat, and if we got another shot at those Tag Team titles, we would win. And Ziggler kind of echoes his thoughts and says, they're the rightful holders of the Raw Tag Team Championships. And then Matt Camp talks about the Tag Team title picture, all the other teams involved with RK Bro and Omos and AJ Styles. So we'll see how that kind of pans out in the weeks to come. Coming back from commercial, they plugged the tickets being on sale for WrestleMania 38, I think late next week. In Texas, they're having like an on-sale party in Texas or whatever, which is kind of cool. They also recapped Damian Priest versus TBar from Raw, the no disqualification match, and it was honestly a good match. They worked well together. They got a lot more time this week than they did last week. TBar getting to show a lot in defeat, which was nice. And they acknowledged that Damian Priest kind of flipped the switch from nice guy, the angel Damian Priest, to the devil Damian Priest, which I think the gimmick is kind of dumb, especially when there really wasn't anything wrong with what he was doing previously. Everyone's going to have like a fucking character or a gimmick. He didn't really have a gimmick before. He was just the Archer of Infamy, but it worked. He was getting over. I mean, he got over here, and it was a great match, and people were into the match, and they were into Damian winning. They were, very into him by the end of the match, but I just didn't really think the music change or the gimmick change or whatever you want to call it was really that necessary. But anyway, Matt Camp brings up how Damian's great year may be in peril due to Apollo Crews. Apollo Crews came out after the match, basically challenged Damian Priest for that United States Championship, a title he had once held a few years ago, or actually just last year. It feels like it was a lot longer, but he held it last year and he's coming back for it, which I think is fine. I think Apollo is a fine filler opponent for Damian. I don't see it being this great feud. Apollo has just been... I like Apollo. The heel Apollo is better off than babyface Apollo. He's getting more, I say more TV time. He hasn't been on the show in like months. He is far more relevant now as a heel than he was as a babyface even a year ago. But it's like, I don't know, they beat this guy like a fucking drum over on SmackDown. He kind of had a very forgettable reign as Intercontinental Champion. So I don't really have a lot of faith they're going to do much more with him on Raw than they did on SmackDown towards the end there. But it's nice that he's getting on TV and feuding with Priest over the championship. Priest should not be losing that title to Apollo Crews. I'll tell you that right now. And I like Apollo Crews, but he is the absolute wrong guy to be winning that championship from Damian Priest. So, nonetheless, they also recap Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair, the beginning of Raw, that saw Becky Lynch cheat to retain the Raw Women's Championship against Bianca, and a great match. They had mentioned many times on Raw and on Raw Talk, it was the greatest match in Raw history, one of the greatest. I mean, I don't know if I'd go that far. It was a great match. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say it was one of the greatest matches ever. I don't even know if it was one of the best matches on Raw this year. It was a great match, though it probably is one of the better television matches on the show this year. Of all time, I don't know if I'd go that far, especially with a cheap finish like that. But at least they protected Bianca in defeat. How many more times can they protect Bianca in defeat is the question. Because she's lost now a number of times. She lost to Becky in 26 seconds or whatever it was at WrestleMania or at SummerSlam. She failed to win the championship at Extreme Rules. She failed to win the championship at Crown Jewel. This was like her 4th match with Becky in a certain, in a different format, albeit. And she still lost. So I'm hoping the end game is still that she gets the title, and I know they kind of teased Becky and Liv Morgan, which I'm fine with, but Bianca's got to get the belt. She has to be the one to beat Becky. If she's not the one to beat Becky, then all of this was a complete waste of time. That's my problem with the whole Becky-Bianca feud. Matt Kim says that Becky, he tries to twist the ending of the match by saying that Becky showed respect to Bianca by cheating to beat her. I'm not exactly sure if that's respect because Bianca still fucking lost. But he's trying to say that, she thinks of her as, a threat to her championship, which is why she had to cheat to beat her. I don't know if I would throw the word respect around. I don't know if there's really anything respectful about how, Becky beat Bianca. But nonetheless, I could see what he's kind of going for there. But he also questions the exact same thing that I said. When is enough for Bianca Belair? She's lost a lot lately. Between the 3 or 4 matches that she's had with Becky, they've had, she had a couple of matches on TV with Charlotte and with Sasha, and she lost a bunch of those. How many more times can Becky continue to lose, or rather Bianca continue to lose to Becky Lynch, or just lose in general? And maybe she'll have to start cheating or go after, win via nefarious means and stuff like that in order to get back on track. So I really hope they're not turning Bianca heel. I think that'd be stupid, especially with how popular she is right now. If the way that she's booked is an indicator of them turning her heel, I think that'd be incredibly fucking dumb. So I really hope that's not where they're going with this. Anyway, so they talk about that, and Redmond also says that Becky Lynch is good at adapting. What she's talking, I don't really know what she's talking about. She's kind of useless. I like Jackie Redmond as far as like the recapping stuff, but her analysis is completely pointless. So then we hear from Becky Lynch backstage at Raw with, I think, Kevin Patrick, and he talks about, or Becky Lynch rather talks about, the fact that, it's time for Bianca to step aside. I've beaten her a number of times now. I've beat her 3 or 4 times. Beat her in 26 seconds. I beat her again here tonight, just regardless of whether she cheated or not. A win is a win, and she beat Bianca a number of times. So it's time for Bianca to step aside. Their bad blood is over as far as she's concerned. And then as far as Liv Morgan, she gets brought up, and Becky says, listen, she talks about, watch me. Well, I've been watching, and now I'm waiting. I'm waiting for Liv Morgan. And honestly, that's a great fucking line. And I like Liv Morgan a lot. I'm glad she's getting the spotlight, but they're putting her in the title picture at the absolute wrong time. Why didn't they put her in the title picture earlier in the summer? Why didn't they put her in the title picture even a month ago when she was winning a few matches in a row? She hasn't won recently since Extreme Rules. In late September, I don't think. She lost to Carmella in the tournament. She lost to Carmella again on Raw last week. Why her, of all people, would be getting a title shot at this point, I have no idea. Like, they literally put people in title pictures after they lost a lot. Kevin Owens and Rollins, prime example. All they've been doing recently is losing. Owens hasn't won a singles match on TV, I don't think, since August. Rollins hasn't won since he beat Edge 2 months ago on SmackDown. Why are any of these guys in the title picture? Why is Liv Morgan in the title picture right now? Whatever happened to building people up and giving them a title shot after they, pick up a bunch of wins? That's my question. But I thought that watching and waiting line about Liv Morgan from Becky was actually quite great, because she's right. I mean, she's talking about watch me. What has she really done lately? And that's not Liv Morgan's fault, obviously. That's the company's fault with how they book her, but doesn't exactly put Liv Morgan in the best of light. Anyway, to close out the episode, Matt Camp says that Bianca may have a gripe because of how she was beaten, but people want to see Liv Morgan get an opportunity. At the same time, he mentions that she has to prove that she's earned that opportunity. I'm glad he brought that up and he wasn't playing Mark here and said, oh yeah, give her the title shot. No, he said she's got to earn it, whether it be a number 1 contenders match, a championship contenders match by beating Becky Lynch. I was going to say I wouldn't do that because Becky hasn't lost in years, but she literally just lost to Sasha on SmackDown a few weeks ago. So it doesn't really matter, I guess. But still, he's right. Like, she has to earn the opportunity. She lost to Carmella last week. She lost to Carmella in the first round of the, Queen's Crown tournament. Or second? No, it was the first round. And she hasn't won in a while. She lost to Zelina Vega right before the Extreme Rules pay-per-view. I think the only win she's picked up lately was at Extreme Rules on the kickoff show, if people even remember that. As far as the TV matches are concerned, she hasn't won in a while, so she does indeed have to earn that opportunity. And that was the November 1st, 2021 edition of Raw Talk. Thank you guys for checking out my review. I appreciate it. Decent show, really nothing to go out of your way to watch from this episode. Becky Lynch's promo was very short. A lot of these promos are very short. The only thing really worth watching from these Raw Talk shows are the backstage interviews. Matt Camp's analysis is fine. Jackie Redmond does a good job. I like Jackie Redmond, and she does a good job of recapping the action. But her analysis, which I guess isn't really her job anyway, is completely pointless. But I will take her over, Charlie Caruso, for example, and people may not be happy that I'm saying that, but I really didn't give a fuck about Charlie. She was just annoying. I would prefer, my top choice would be Kayla, and then Jackie Redmond, and then Charlie Caruso. Charlie Caruso just got off track way too often, and she was just annoying as hell. But Jackie does a decent job, and I think Matt Camp brings a lot to the table as the analyst of the two of them. So I think it's a good, solid duo, making for some solid shows here. But the thing is, they upload all the individual interviews here from Raw Talk and even Talking Smack on their YouTube channel. So you don't even have to watch Raw Talk. Like, you got the Balor interview, the Dirty Dogs interview, which was completely pointless, and the Becky interview in its own video on WWE's YouTube channel, if not on WWE.com. So you don't even really have to watch Raw Talk, but I do every single week just in case anything happens, and it was a fine show this week. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to this channel. I would appreciate your guys' support, and be sure to hit the bell button as well to be notified every time a new video is uploaded, which is every single day. We got new interviews coming up, more content, Q&A videos every single Wednesday, podcast excerpts. We just wrapped up my Dark Side of the Ring reviews here on the channel, so be sure to check that out. Our What If reviews of Marvel, that we finished up a couple of weeks ago as well. Check those out as well. We're going to be doing Hawkeye reviews coming up, and then hopefully Book of Boba Fett. The trailer just dropped the other day and looks great, so check that stuff out as well. So, have an awesome rest of your week, guys. I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.